welcome to you and thank you for joining us on Health and Wellness. My name is Zaitun Ali and today we are coming to you from the Hotel Troy right here at Mombasa Road in Nairobi. And the topic of discussion is depression and anxiety. They say that depression is a mood disorder that makes you feel sad and anxious, irritable at some given point in life. And 1 out of 6 adults currently are going through depression, and out of this about 16 million adults yearly actually worldwide go through depression. And we are going to hear about this and more from my panel right here. I have Dr. Kennedy Ochieng, who is a psychologist from Sarazekiel. Have I said it right? Yes, Sarazekiel Treatment Center at Utawala. And I also have Warieme Karinge, who is a mental health advocate and a CEO and founder at Let's Go Mental. Karibuni to the show.
Thank you.
Yes, and on my right, I have our audience who are going to participate in this conversation in the second part of the show. So don't miss out and stay tuned until the very end. Karibu, Daktari.
Thank you.
And we will start by getting to know what actually depression means and what is anxiety.
Depression, as you have said it, that it is a mental disorder, but it mainly affects the mood of the person. So you realize that the person tends to feel more of the time or often low or in a state of hopelessness. Yeah. Anxiety, on the other end, is excess worry that the person usually tends to have.
And a common question people ask, why are they linked together, both depression and anxiety?
Okay, not quite often, but there is a state of what we call comorbidity. Comorbidity is when anxiety tends to link up with depression, but it is not in all cases. So one of the reasons why you realize that these things, most of the time they go hand in hand, is because of a common factor, which is underlying chronic stress. So you realize that when you're talking about anxiety, we're talking about, it's a natural reaction to stress. That's what anxiety is, a natural reaction to stress. But now when it reaches to a certain point whereby it becomes excess or in excessive, then now it begins now having impairment in your normal day-to-day life. So on the other hand now, when now you come and realize there are things you cannot achieve, because of now you the worry is excess, and then now it makes you reach to a point whereby you are nervous. You see, it starts affecting things like your self-esteem. It starts creating things like self-doubt. So all these things at the end of the day now begins also to affect you. So you realize that now depression also starts kicking in. So most of the time that is why we call them comorbid.
Okay.
Yeah.
But let's talk about you, Warieme, and what did you go through? You can give us your experience. That's a laugh. That's a laugh.
Actually, now I'm like, okay, where do I begin? There are so many problems.
Oh, no.
But anyway, so for me, I was diagnosed with severe depression and anxiety disorder in 2015.
Okay.
It manifested itself in a very interesting way. I used to experience a lot of like trembling, shaking, self-doubt. It had reached a point like I ended up like I would drink alone, you know, or I would find myself just isolating myself at home. And I used to be a very I was a social butterfly.
Yeah.
So now when I found myself starting to isolate, I was like, oh, I'm actually maturing. Now I don't need to go out. Now I'm fine. But little did I know that it was the condition. And then my body crashed in June. Yeah, we happened to be in a meeting in the office. And same thing as I was talking about and what Dr. Ria said. I said there was a manager who was stressing me during the meeting.
Okay.
And I'd already been struggling with this anxiety, but I didn't know what it was. Like the anxiety was so severe such that in fact even it happens still today. Like if I'm taking a passport photo, I shake.
You can't stay still.
I can't stay still. And I never understood what was all that about. But later now I got to find out that it was now the anxiety bit. Yeah. And also what I got to learn was that I actually started developing the depression and anxiety in 2008. Because I remember in 2008, I started asking myself, what changed in me? Again, as I said, social butterfly, very confident, you know, talking, making friends, you know, things like that. And then I also lack of confidence, you know, doubting yourself, self-esteem. I used to have to seek approval from people. So you see all these symptoms, I used to wonder, what is all this about? Now until 2015, that's when I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So all these years, this is what has been happening. So since now that 2015, I've been on medication. One of the things now, you've introduced me as a mental health advocate, and that's the path I decided to take, because this is a very painful journey that people do not know about. Yeah, number one. Number two, I remember when I was diagnosed, I was told I have depression and anxiety. But now I didn't know which one was the anxiety.
And which one was the depression.
And which one was the depression. You know, so like I was just told, okay, this is the depression and anxiety. So for me, I've had to learn on the go the different symptoms between this is the anxiety and this is the depression.
And Daktari can help on that one. Because I think you can mention about depression and anxiety. Where do we draw the line? What are the symptoms for both?
Yeah, depression and anxiety share common characteristics or common symptoms. You'll come and realize that, but the distinguishing factor between depression and anxiety is that with the depression you tend to feel a lot of hopelessness.
Okay.
That is with the depression. You just get to a point whereby you don't have interest. You lose interest in things that you used to find pleasure. And but you come and realize that with anxiety, you don't experience hopelessness. You see, so that is the most distinguishing factor between depression and anxiety. But the rest of the symptoms, most of the time, they are almost the same. You come and realize there are people who experience insomnia, both with anxiety
but
and
I thought insomnia
depression.
was like a mental disorder on its own, but it comes as a result of depression as well.
Most of the time, it is a symptom.
Ah. Okay.
Though we have sleep disorder in its own, you know, difference.
A sleep disorder.
A sleep disorder, yes. So you come and realize that those things, symptoms, like I've said, such as like insomnia, you realize that this person cannot sleep. Sometimes it is now hypersomnia. They tend to sleep a lot.
Do I have that?
And let me tell you, that sleep never gets finished.
I know.
Yes.
It never. You will sleep and sleep and sleep.
Really?
Wake up, still feel so fatigued.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have no energy to do anything. You just go back to bed. You know.
But I think at some point in life, every adult goes through the same. When we find maybe we are in a financial stress or maybe career is not doing well, we get to that. Things that you're trying to do, they're not coming up as well as you expected. So you get this hopelessness feeling, but at what point do we now term it as depression? Because how long does it have to go on for?
With depression, using the DSM criteria, we have different types of depression. So you come and realize, like, for instance, we have what we call the major depressive disorder. So with the major depressive disorder, it is a depression that has to consistently be there for at least 2 weeks. You know, and for these 2 weeks, there are presenting symptoms that just must be there.
Okay.
So if those symptoms are there consistently for 2 weeks, like the hopelessness, you become lethargic, or apathy. What it means, you don't have interest, you don't have energy, you know, then loss of
Irritability.
appetite, you know, you are not eating. But there are some who now it is the reverse. When they're depressed, they
Eat a lot.
properly, seriously. I don't know for...
Now mine, me, I'm very happy. Mine, I really lost a lot of weight. In fact, even it's just this year that I kind of started gaining a bit. And the reason I started kind of gaining is because this has been my best year in terms of my health. So you see now, even when it comes to eating, I'm able to eat regularly. I was looking at a photo of mine the other day, 2017, I was skinny. And then the worst thing is, it was that skinny of unaona huyu mtu ni mgonjwa. You know, and then I remember people used to be like, oh my God, you've lost so much weight, blah, blah, blah. And then I used to be like, it's not a nice thing because I've not lost weight because of me wanting to, but it's now this condition. So I can't eat. Let me tell you, it does not matter what I do, I just cannot eat. So for mine now, it's the opposite of loss of appetite, and then losing weight.
Okay.
But of course, as a woman,
It was to your advantage.
it's
Yeah.
my advantage.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
there are those symptoms that
Yeah.
once they present for a duration of time, then we can come and say you have this type of depression. And then there are those people who sometimes you realize they have been depressed chronically for even like 2 years.
Oh, Lord.
It is just persistent. It doesn't seem to go away. So in that also we have a condition known as dysthymia. Dysthymia is that, you know, it's chronic depression.
Okay.
It doesn't just go away, you see. So, but there is this just normal daily stress, you know, whereby it's just mild.
Okay.
You know, you got a setback, you are there, you know, you've gone down for some time, and then you just wake up and then it disappears.
I've been misusing the word depression because when we get those setbacks, it's clear, aki niko na depression,
Yes.
aki niko na anxiety. Because normally, you know, you get this, even before a show, I was even telling Waremi, before a show, you come and you get so nervous
Yeah.
because of what are you going to deliver, and you
Yeah.
have this anxiety feeling.
Yeah.
But for you, Waremi, it was different. So maybe talk about the anxiety.
Okay, so you know the feeling that you get when you're anxious?
Yes.
So you kind of feel like you're trembling, maybe you'll feel butterflies in your stomach, maybe you'll feel, so for me, like now what happens, now when it gets now to the now extreme, is I start having dizzy spells, right? Suddenly I'll just start having dizzy spells. The trembling, in fact, even, okay, I know the camera won't be able to get this, but Doc, you can see like,
Yeah.
this is how I constantly, because of high anxiety, I
Yeah.
constantly shake. Then the last year was my worst year in terms of anxiety. And maybe Doc, now you can also help me further on this one. I was not able to do anything. I was not, and I'm not lying to you, I was not able to do anything.
Yeah.
So my life from February of last year to February of this year, because that's when now it started lifting, the anxiety kind of reduced, I was home, hospital, home, hospital, home, hospital. We tried changing the medications, we tried everything, we tried the therapy, and I was just not getting better, you know. Leaving the house is a production. Let me tell you, even today, I wake up, I'm like, how am I feeling?
Yeah.
You know, so I'm not too sure. I'm feeling like I'm always feeling imbalanced 24/7, you know, because of now that condition. And that's why now I also like became a mental health advocate, because you see there are the basic symptoms, trembling, shaking, maybe lack of appetite, brain fog, for memory loss. In fact, like my memory for whole of last year, the same thing. I had no memory. Like I would call you in the morning, I've called you in the morning, we've talked, nice long phone call. Then in the evening or in the afternoon, I'll call you and be like,
You've forgotten.
where have you to pad me like this? And
And
the
you guys
person is
talked.
like, yeah. Or I could read, I was doing my master's, but then, and you see these are some of the things I talk about.
Yeah.
But then I had to be discontinued because I couldn't meet the exam deadlines. I couldn't read what was required, you know, and that was very, very painful. So the anxiety, when you asked what's the difference from the normal anxiety and this other anxiety, it's debilitating. You can't do anything. Like now I can't drive anymore, you know. Imagine I can't drive. So it's like, I just can't drive. So there are so many things that you can't do. The same energy that I used to have. I've always been a high achiever. I've always been a perfectionist. I started doing very well from when I was from my first job actually. Like I remember I was actually being paid above market rate, and I was able to do that. So there are all these things, but now I can't do them anymore. And then let me just quickly go back to the thing of the leaving the house. You know, you get out of bed, go, maybe drink water, brush your teeth, figure out what you're going to wear, blah, blah, blah. But now for me, let me not say about other people, maybe some people, it's you wake up and you're like, okay, I feel okay. Then you're like, okay, let me shower. Come out of the shower. Should I really go? Should I really go?
Okay.
You know, should I really go? Because sometimes what will happen is, I may go somewhere, I get an anxiety attack.
Yeah.
You
So
know?
at least today we are lucky to have you.
Yes, today you're very lucky
But you're
to have
feeling
me.
relaxed?
So I'm feeling very relaxed. I'm very
Good.
happy it was a recording. By the way,
Yeah.
there's a time I did an interview with KTN
Yeah.
in 2021. It was a live show. Do you know I got an anxiety attack while it was live?
The broadcast.
So I remember the presenter, because now my legs started shaking. Then I remember the presenter kind of turned to me and like, are you okay? Kind of whispering. And I'm like, no. So now I don't know whether she directed them to move the camera away.
Yeah.
So I was able to
Get out of the
to
set.
get out
yeah.
of the set. That thing affected me.
Oh, sorry.
You
But
know, because now the thing is, this thing comes and takes control, and
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how much you want to do something. Unfortunately, it just
You don't
Okay.
have the
limits
willpower.
you.
And
Yes,
Daktari,
exactly.
maybe let me ask you, who is more at risk of getting maybe depression and anxiety? Can anyone just get it?
Yeah, depression and anxiety can affect any person, but there are people who they are more susceptible to it, especially people who are exposed to things like substance abuse, and also it is hereditary. So if in your family already there is the case,
Yeah, and
then you are
episodes.
more prone to
Oh,
it.
really?
Yes.
What about children?
In children, it's not quite. But in children, you realize that, especially when it comes to depression, it doesn't present itself, the way it presents it in adults, like low mood and sadness and, hopelessness. It tends to come like irritability. So you may come and realize that children are always irritable. Yeah, but it's not so prevalent in children compared
Okay.
to the adults.
And when it comes to now diet, how does depression and anxiety now affect, like she said, she lost weight. So how does this come along?
Now, like any other disease, most of diseases, when you are diagnosed with it, you see, hunger is a sign of health. Let me put it that way. Hunger is a sign of health.
Yeah.
When you come and you realize somebody is saying, I'm hungry, then it means that person is actually healthy. So when now the depression and anxiety kicks in, it starts affecting even the chemical, the neurotransmitters in the brain. And most of the time you come and realize that now somebody reaches to that point whereby like your body just resists anything even to do with food. You see, you just want to be in a motion whereby you don't want to do anything. It's like it's more of an autopilot. You don't want to eat, because even eating, your brain has that energy to wake up and want to make a meal. You see that? But with the depression, you realize that sometimes even that eating, you don't even want to eat anything. It's like, it's so hard to take that food and actually just eat it. The appetite just disappears. You see?
And at some point, people even ask, does it cause maybe physical pain when you're
Yes,
undergoing it?
it does.
What kind of physical pain?
You may reach to a point whereby sometimes you may have muscle cramps.
Oh,
Yes. Like somebody may even experience stiff-necked. Just wake up, you see somebody sometimes amelala, and then when you wake up in the morning, somebody says like, hey, my neck is just aching.
okay.
That can be, anxiety. There are people who sometimes you experience abdominal pains, literally.
But the anxiety even brings about diarrhea.
Yes. And even the other symptoms even of anxiety is urination, frequent urination or frequently visiting the toilet. You just realize that, your stomach is always rumbling, and you just feel like you want to help yourself, but when you go there, there's nothing. There are people, like I've said, they start experiencing like muscle, literally, pain, that there is tension. To a point whereby it even now, like in Wariange, Warimi, it starts affecting your hands. There are people you just realize like they have tremors. Like somebody who is alcoholic, they are shaking. So it affects the physical.
For you, Kes, before we go into the
Actually,
break?
very, very important question that you've asked about physical symptoms.
Yeah.
Because now, initially, when I was figuring out what's going on, it took about 2 months for me to be diagnosed with depression. I was admitted for like 3 weeks, because now by this time I couldn't walk. I was not making head or tails of what was going on around me. I didn't know timing, I didn't know anything, all those things.
Yes.
Now, the physical pain, first of all, I was experiencing extreme migraines. So initially, I thought I have either a tumor or something, or there's a problem. So it was migraines. Number 2, I was numb on one side of my body.
Paralysis.
Yeah, paralysis. So I was numb on one side of my body. And then over and above that, when I'm numb on one side, I'm having heart palpitations. So you can imagine for me, what am I thinking? I have a brain issue and I have a heart issue, you know? And then he's talking about the muscle spasms. I remember like behind my knees, there are times like I would feel like I'm getting a muscle pull. It's not really a muscle pull, but you know,
Spasms of the
yeah,
muscles,
exactly.
Okay.
So those are some of the symptoms that happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And we would just want to take a short commercial break. Remember, this has been Health and Wellness. The hashtag on X is hashtag Health and Wellness, hashtag KTN Welcome Home. The socials at KTN Home, at Ali_Zaitun. Let us know if you have any question. Also on 22151. The SMS line is free of charge. So after the break, we'll come back with more of the treatment. So don't go too far. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, remember this is Health and Wellness, and we're coming to you from the Troy Hotel right here in Magadi Road, Nairobi. And the topic of discussion has been depression and anxiety. And on my set, I have Dr. Kennedy Ochieng and Warieme Karingi, who have just given us instrumental and insightful stories about what is up with depression, what is up with anxiety, the symptoms, what Warieme actually experienced, and we've learned a lot. So right now, we want to get deeper into now the treatment method. And remember, I still have my audience who are going to also ask their questions. And you at home can also do the same on our SMS line 22151 or on our socials at KTN Home. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
So we want to go straight to the treatment. We've seen the symptoms, how it's being diagnosed, and now how can we manage this illness?
Depression and anxiety has two phases of treatment.
Yeah.
The first treatment is more of what we call the pharmacotherapy part of it.
What is that?
This is the medication part of it,
Okay.
the SSRIs. You know, so there are certain medications that you are given, and they're able to, you know, bring or try to put a balance in the brain chemistry. So there are people, and the medication are of different types, you know, depending also with your own body reaction. So there's that part of that treatment. And then also we have the psychotherapy part of it. So the psychotherapy involves, it can be individual counseling, you know, it can be psychoeducation, you trying to understand yourself. We have what we call relaxation techniques. You know, when now you are in a place and you are anxious, what is it that you can do to, you know, calm yourself down, relax. Also we have things like hydrotherapy. Hydrotherapy actually helps a lot.
So is it basically swimming, or what do you mean?
No, with hydrotherapy, yeah, okay. Swimming can be part of it, but also there is just, you know, like treatment for hydrotherapy. There are people who, it's like more of, you see people who actually struggle with autism. Sometimes they are helped to, you know, like go through the hydrotherapy. So the same way they're treated, also the same way you can treat anxiety.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
And Warieme, for you, what was the treatment process?
Okay, so for me, I've had to be on antidepressants, mood stabilizers, and anti-anxiety pills.
Okay.
So that's what I am on. Remember at the beginning I mentioned that I crashed, my body crashed. So unfortunately for me, I was diagnosed very late. You know, probably if I was diagnosed maybe at the beginning, maybe as I said, the onset, then probably all I would have needed is this therapy and coping strategies. But now because my body basically crashed, now I'm on medication. I also do therapy. There's also a lot of self-care, as is talked about, breathing exercises, yoga, working out is very, very important.
Nice.
But then now, like for me in my situation, as I said, there are times I wake up and I'm not too sure. I love walking. Then now, there are times I'll walk, I'm outside there, I get an anxiety attack. So I have to call an Uber back. Then by the time now, I'm picking myself up to have the courage to actually go walk.
Yeah.
Now takes a long time. So I usually tell people, I'm like, the very same thing that I should be trying to work on to make me better is the very same thing that is disrupting me from actually doing what it is to make me better. You understand? Yeah, so, but that has been my treatment all through. And maybe, Dr. there's a question I'd like to ask you. So for me, in my case, I have never really been able to pick up my life, no matter how much I try, you know. I've never been able to pick up my life. I keep experiencing these symptoms on and off. I have been admitted very many times, you know. Thank God this year I've only been admitted once. As I said earlier, it's my best year and I'm really grateful to God for that.
Great.
So maybe please explain to us, like, why is it the case? Like for me now, I can't work, I can't hold an 8 to 5 anymore. I mentioned earlier about the business, you know. So why does that happen? And then you find other people are still able to be on medication and they're able to get work done. So why does that happen?
Now, when it comes to treatment, you realize that number one, our bodies are unique. Okay, every person's body is unique. Every person is distinct. There are people, we call them high functioning. What it means that there is somebody who can go and take probably an antidepressant, and within a very short time, they are stable. Their moods have stabilized and they can actually go into their normal routine. But there are people you realize that sometimes they are taking medication, but actually the same medication is actually causing more harm than good. And that happens a lot with antidepressants.
Really?
Yeah. Actually, that is why we encourage people to actually always go for a review, because the antidepressants also have side effects.
Yes.
So they can actually make you more depressed. They can actually make you more suicidal. You see that? So it reacts with people differently. There are people who take longer to peak. You see that? There are people who take very short time to peak. So it is something distinct. And that is why one of the things you realize that also when somebody has a comorbid, that means the depression and anxiety, sometimes the people now who have that kind of issue, they also take a lot, because you come and realize they are always comparing themselves with other people. You see that comparison. Why is it that for me it is not working?
It's true.
But for these people it is actually working. You see that. So with such kind of a thing is usually with treatment is usually say you don't force treatment. As time goes by, you will be able to know what works for you and what doesn't actually work for you.
And a question also comes in mind, because when you say they have side effects, do they also have withdrawal effects once you stop using?
Yes.
Can you now, can you go back to the episodes as well?
Okay, with this medication, number one, that's why, like we say, you have to consult a professional, a psychiatric doctor, because some of these medications are actually addictive. So you come and realize somebody has been taking the medication and then now they become addicted to that medication. So when now they stop, they go into a sink. You see that? There are people, like I said also, our bodies are unique. There are people who take medication, but they build resistance very fast to the medication. So you realize that somebody was taking medication, that the tolerance level becomes higher. So it means that now maybe their dosage has to increase, or they have to change the medication altogether. You see, so our bodies are very unique when it comes with how we interact with the medication and all these kind of things. Yes.
That's well understood.
I would like to ask you another question. There are certain drugs, like say for example for the anxiety. Actually there are two things that I would like to say. First of all, when you're diagnosed with depression and anxiety, it's not like when you're diagnosed with tonsils and you know you'll either be given Augmentin or Amoxil or some whatever, you know. With mental illnesses, they put you on, say, 2 drugs, right? And one maybe is 100 mg and the other one is 50 mg. So they give you that medication and they tell you, come back and see me after 2 weeks, so that you can see how the medication is working. So it's normally, I usually say it's trial and error, removing medications, adding dosages, blah, blah, blah. So like mine, it took 6 months to eventually now settle and find out
what is good for you.
What is good for me. So it's also important to know that. And then one thing that is also very, very important, people should not self-medicate. Because you see, as I've mentioned, you're on 200 mgs, 250 mg. How do you know which mg works? How do you know which what is
How
it
do you know which dosage?
Which dosage works for you? you know. So it's very, very important not to buy these things over the counter. Psychologists are not supposed to diagnose medication. It is only psychiatrists who are supposed to diagnose medication because they are medical doctors. Yeah.
Thank you for that. So I want to throw now the ball to the audience court, and in case you have a question, feel free to ask it at this point.
Oh, okay, thank you. First, thank you for this session. I think I always say mental health is part of me. I'm Western party, so I do modeling and I do music, and we are the music scene. We are one of the, actually this generation, we are the ones who are really one of the group that is really faced with these problems of anxiety and depression. And like Dr. has said, the main problem comes with comparison. You know, you're like, I'm doing this, I'm trying this, my friends are going, they are making it, I'm not making it, you know. So many of us try to run to drugs and other things so that they give you a seasonal, it's like a seasonal thing, because once they are out, you are back there. So my question maybe will be to Daktari. If there's any effort that has been made, maybe by any governmental institution to give those doctors a free will to interact with the youths, because now if I'm faced with anxiety and depression, and I'm diagnosed with anxiety and depression. Now, you know me, thinking like my normal youth self, that nitaenda kupoteza hiyo 40k ama 20k kwa daktari. Si nieri nitafute pesa fulani, niende nitafute kitu yenye itanituliza. So I go to a cheaper version of treatment, which is seasonal and it's drugs. So is there any avenues so far ya wale watu ambao I can go for them, they give me a free advice maybe, so that naeza pata treatment haraka than kufikiria the bills and everything that is surrounding the story?
That's a good question. Thank you so much for that. And Daktari, we can even start from Sarah Zekiel at that hospital. What kind of help do you give to such a youth person, a youth coming to you? Yes. What kind of help do you give them?
Okay, with the treatment, one of the things that I would like to say also in this platform is that treatment for mental health is not cheap. These medications are not cheap. That is why before I revert back to his question, I would like also to caution a lot of young people and a lot of people who are also living a reckless life, is that what you deem as fun, you know, because some of these diseases are caused by our lifestyles. You see that. Our drinking patterns, our smoking patterns, our interactions and all that. So we enjoy it. But now when it comes to now treatment, it is one of the most expensive treatments. But yes, there are pro bono services. Pro bono services, even at Sarah Zekiel, we offer them. That means that you can come for consultation. You see that. You can walk in, like for us, our doors are always open. You can walk in. Consultation is free of charge. Once you have consulted, then depending now with the assessment, then from there now it is when it can be determined. Do you need to be put on medication, or is it just a matter of therapy and you are okay? You see, what Wariame is doing is actually that. You see, we have provided platforms where people can go, be educated, ask those kind of questions, those advocacy. You see, so those platforms, yes, the government has allowed those platforms to be there, you know, to create that awareness, have those campaigns. So, yeah, treatment is there.
I'd also like to add that the government provide mental health treatment in, is it level 4 or level 5?
Yes.
Level 5.
Level 4 and 5.
Level 4 and 5. So any level 4 or 5 government hospital, you can go for treatment there. There's also a very long list that has been doing its rounds from Nairobi Metropolitan Services. So they have different hospitals within different areas. So if it's Utawala, they'll give you which hospitals to go to. It's just unfortunate that they are not able to build a database, you know, so I can't like now refer you and tell you go to this website, you'll find all the details there. So I think those are some of the issues now we are also having in terms of the services are there, but not as many, but people do not know about them.
Okay.
And there needs to be awareness towards this treatment.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I'll take another question.
Thank you for the session, and it has been very educational. And my name is Sharif Ahmed, and I'm also part of the peer education in the University of Nairobi. And most of the things that we've encountered, someone asks a question that is panic attack related to anxiety? Because most of them can come to you and ask you, I've been experiencing panic attacks, and should I be able to go to the psychologist and tell them that I have been experiencing panic attack, even though that I've been told that I have anxiety? So my question is that, is panic attack as a result of anxiety, or is it on its own manifestation? And my second question is people who experience childhood trauma, are they more prone to the anxiety and depression than other people who haven't experienced childhood trauma? Thank you.
Directed to Daktari? Yes. Okay, thank you so much.
My name is Sharif. Yes. Yeah, Sharif, panic attacks is one of the types of anxiety disorder. We have, in anxiety disorders, we have different types of anxiety disorders. We have the general anxiety disorder, phobia. You know, people who are usually scared of so many things, it falls under anxiety. We have like panic attacks. We have things we call agoraphobia. So yes, it's part of anxiety attacks. And of course, childhood, people who have already been, they're already predisposed. So people who have experienced childhood traumas, they are more susceptible and are more vulnerable. That is where you realize that even in adulthood, some of them develop what we call anxious, avoidant attachment styles. You see, your interaction with people, because the trauma that has been there when you are young, now you are an adult. You realize how you interact with people. The attachment styles, most of the time, they're always anxious.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Warimi, you had something to add on?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm very happy about that question for anxiety and panic attacks. Now, panic attacks, you feel like you're having a heart attack, and it comes from nowhere. So you can be sitting here nicely, I start feeling, you know, it just starts, and then there's usually a darting pain, for me, up and down. Now what happens, and then I can't breathe, you know, I start feeling dizzy. So shortness of breath, it can escalate from 0 to 100 like in 3 minutes, in 3 seconds. And it doesn't matter how often you have panic attacks, it always feels like you're dying. It always feels like you're dying. Okay. And maybe I could also add something else in terms of treating. If you have a friend, you're with a friend somewhere, and they get an anxiety attack, or you know, maybe a panic attack, what you need to do is just sit them somewhere quiet, because you know also a lot of noise stimulates now the anxiety. So find somewhere quiet. Depending on how close you are to the person, you can just hug them until they calm down. Or if you're not too close to that person, maybe it's a workmate, just keep rubbing their back. You know, rubbing their back, get them cold water, because you know, people don't usually know what to do. And then now, me as the person in it, when people are asking me, what can we do to help? I don't know, because you see that time I'm in a frenzy. Yeah. So those are some of the things you can do. Get them ice cold water. So yeah, so actually anxiety now actually can lead to panic attacks, and it's normally the worst feeling ever.
Okay, yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah. And I'll take just one more question as we're winding up.
Thank you for this segment. I'm Eugene Sami. My question, I actually have 2 questions. I'll direct them to Daktari. You can find a patient or someone with dual diagnosis. He has addictive disorders, and now for the mental one. Yeah. So the treatment procedure on the 2 and the duration, how does it go, the procedure? And also, how do we deal with stigma? Because when you just mental health outside here, mostly people are stigmatized. When you have a mental issue, people don't want to deal with you, want to isolate you. So you find the stigma is real than the advocacy. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Comorbidity, or what we call the dual diagnosis. There are people who are having addiction or addictive disorders. So you realize that somebody is struggling with alcohol use disorder, it can be maybe marijuana use disorder, and sometimes it makes treatment of depression or anxiety difficult. Because the more, for instance, you're taking alcohol, alcohol is a downer. So it makes you even more depressed. So we have to treat both of them. That is why sometimes now we tell people to check in a facility. And you just have to try and abstain from the substance use. You see that? So there's the treatment for the substance use, also there's treatment for the depression. With the stigma, it is something that as we are doing more of advocacy, and we are campaigning, at the end of the day, we are going to break the stigma. The society just needs to accept that this is a disease that is just here with us. We have to be open to it, and especially even for people who are already affected. Don't, just isolate and think that now you are somebody who cannot be part of the society. Self-acceptance actually is the first key to healing. When you accept it, when you accept yourself, you'll make actually the society to accept it. Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the questions, and I hope they are well answered. Asante sana. And also thank you to my panel for a very insightful talk right here. We've managed to create awareness in one way or another, and I'm so glad that you shared your experience, Warimi. And thank you, Daktari, for the scientific knowledge about it all. Maybe as we're winding up, where can we find you, Warimi and Daktari?
Okay, so you can go to my website, www.letsgomental.org. You can also contact me via email on wkaringi@letsgomental.org. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook as letsgomental.ke, and Twitter go_mental. So those are my Twitter handles. You can always reach out to me via DM, and let's continue speaking about mental health. Let's break the stigma. Let's be empathetic to each other. Let's extend a lot of grace towards each other.
Thank you so much, Daktari.
Our physical location is in Utawala, behind Fahari Gardens Hotel. On our Instagram and Facebook is Sarah Ezekiel Treatment Center. And also our contact, our office line is 0726 179 379. Yes.
Thank you so much. And for our audience, from the start until the end, this has been Health and Wellness. We have been shooting right here at the Hotel Troy in Magadi Road, Nairobi. Thank you so much for the insights, Daktari. Thank you so much, Warimi, for your experience that you've shared. And in case you missed this episode, find it on YouTube at KTN Home. On our socials is at KTN Home, at Ali_Zaitun, and on Twitter it's at Zaitun Ali. So thank you so much. Until next time, bye-bye.